to all the longtime Willow fans, the Willow mongers, the Willing Me Softlies, and the Low Boys. We are talking Willow Season 1, the series so far.
Season 1?
Tonight.
Question mark?
Question mark. And this is a little bit different than we've done than all the other episodes so far, as we've watched them and then given our quick reaction and, sort of rating on those particular episodes. But tonight we decided to get together because it is the season finale and talk a little bit about that 8th episode in depth, while also sort of covering the season as a whole. So I don't know. Let's get started, guys. Are you excited to talk about Willow tonight? John?
Peck.
Yeah.
I am. I like seeing Val Kilmer with deepfake was insane. If people saw the post-credits scene, I don't know if people stayed for that, but that was wild. So go back and watch it.
You said that and I literally went, wait, what?
Well, first of all, I'm just trying to get people to watch again and get those ratings up because we want some more Willow.
You don't need to do that. Willow's that good. People should
just
show up.
But there's good reason for it because they left us with quite the cliffhanger, literally and figuratively. And I'm just really excited to talk about it because I feel like this show, I noticed people, started it out, Lucasfilm faithful, Star Wars fans and stuff, but I saw, at least with social media, people like bowed out a bit and people didn't really cover it. There weren't a lot of Star Wars pods that covered it, so I'm glad we did because I think it's cool that all three of us enjoyed it. So that was awesome in itself, but also I just like the fact that this series genuinely got better as it went along. That's a common thing that is said often about movies or shows or whatever, is like it kept getting better. The sequel was better than that. This show really did build upon itself, and they did a good job of setting the tone with the characters and then really taking us for a ride. And by the end of it, it was almost like this was so good, I was hoping the special effects were going to be cheesier to match the movie.
Oh my God.
If you remember like the final scenes of the Willow movie, you're like, oh, But this,
especially
they
today,
brought it on all aspects of the show, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
I cannot properly emphasize how obsessed I am with this series. I've loved every second of it, and to the point that every time I do a review for the reaction review video on our YouTube channel, I get called a liar by like 15 people. Literally 15. There's only about 15 people, but I get called a liar. And it just makes me laugh because I'm like, I am being 100%, 110% genuine that this series is amazing. I was telling these guys as I was watching Willow for the first time for like a long time, I was like writing in caps to them, being like, this is the best movie ever. Like, I was loving it. And then to go into this series, and it just took so many different twists and turns that I wasn't expecting. I don't care what anybody says. Or I was like, oh, it's so predictable. Not necessarily. And I don't think this one was. I think the characters are new, they're original, but like they're relatable. And I loved the writing by Jon Kasdan. I thought he was hilarious, and all his characters really had their moments to shine, while also these just like little quips here and there that you just laugh out loud at. The finale was epic. It really showed Elora Danan's power, and I was just having all these like Rey moments that I was like, oh, this is so wonderful. That I really do hope, because James pointed this out to John and I after we had watched it, I really do hope the book thing at the end is true and they are going to do a volume 2 and a volume 3 and continue this to really tell the full story, because they left it.
We just should just say that right off the bat, because you guys both missed it. So there's probably people watching right now that missed that as well.
To be fair, I watched it. This was my first day back at the office. Like literally the first day in my office for a full work day. And I watched it on my break sort of at work. And so as soon as like Dire Straits kicked in, I'm like, I had to shut it down and get back to business. So yeah,
I was jamming out my desk. I had it in one window and was working in the other window. And I told James on the phone, because he called me to see my reaction. And he's like, did you watch it? And I'm like, yeah, it's great. He's like, did you see the end? I was like, oh yeah, I saw it. He's like, no, did you see the other end? And I was
so James,
the other end.
So paint paint the picture for us. When you were watching it, did you connect the dots immediately? Like when you
Oh,
because a
yeah.
lot of people didn't pick up on this. So what was your experience like when you saw that?
So yeah, to be clear, what it is you get that final vision at the end of the episode, and then it the music hits, and we go to the illustrated
Like
and
the watercolor painted
right
credits.
yeah.
Yeah.
The aha
Um,
video.
And that's sort of the like, oh, well, that's how it ended, right? And then that song plays all the way through, and it shows like this cool portrait that I don't think we've seen in any of the other episodes of like
Mm-mm.
everything all together. It kind of makes a new poster, which I'm sure we could probably get. It'd be neat to get at Celebration if they put that out. But then it fades or cuts to or no, actually, I think as it pulls out more or less, that's in the book. That portrait is in the book
From the
we've been
beginning.
opening up every time and seeing like we're on chapter 2 or chapter 3, and then they close the book, and the hand puts it back onto a shelf full of books right next to a book of a different color and another book of a different color, so it's like red, blue, and green. And the one he's putting back has a 1 in Roman numerals, and then a 2 in Roman numerals next to it, and a 3 in Roman numerals next to it. And so to me, that says you just watched book 1. You still have more of this story left to go. There's
Jon
2,
Favreau's
and there's
like,
3,
they
and then
literally
the
had a
story's
book.
done. There's no more after that. So
Mhm.
to me,
Yeah.
it seemed like that was the sort of Book of Boba Fett moment that
Well,
they
that's
were
what I was
saving.
saying. Like Jon Favreau's like, maybe I should have included a book.
Yeah, it's that sort of Book of Boba Fett moment where you're like, oh, that's coming. This is the announcement sort of thing. So it was a teaser to an announcement that
Right.
that you've watched season 1. Now you're gonna get 2 and 3, and then we're done.
Mhm.
But I mean, theoretically, it could also be John Kasdan. He's very vocal about saying, I've got more solo stories. They're written, they're there. They're in canon as far as he's concerned, but we haven't gotten it yet. Maybe this is
Warwick
just a
tweeted about
nod to
it.
say, I've got more stories. If you want them, they're
Yeah.
right there.
Warwick
But
Davis
nothing
tweeted today
confirmed.
saying, I look forward to season 2. So
All right. Well, then there
That's
you
so
go.
awesome. I couldn't help but think though with the whole book thing that I was like, here's Kasdan making it perfectly clear he has more stories to tell in the first the first volume, so that they can't do the solo thing where they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have series, and they're like, no, we're not. And he's like, yes, you are, because we're literally gonna show that there's more stories to tell. I'm curious
Yeah.
though, what did you guys think of the finale? Do you think it delivered? Because obviously, I
Oh.
think that. But what did you guys think? What was your favorite part of the finale?
John?
I mean, I thought it was the best episode yet. I thought I really mean that when I say this series just kept getting better and better. And I liked the idea, and we could maybe at the end do sort of like let's speculate on season 2, but it is a part of my point in that I like now that we are so established with these characters having their arcs completed with this story that I'm excited to see where they can go from here, especially now that they're this sort of like crew together, and there's that chemistry that is off camera and in story. If you watch any of the behind the scenes clips, this crew clearly had an absolute blast making this show.
When Foreman's like, do you guys want to
another-
make out? And they're like, what? He's like, we could just make out. We don't have to go.
yeah. But I also found it funny because there were some comments on at least one of my reviews. I don't know about you guys, but they were like, someone said like, man, they really abused the volume on this one. And then you look at the behind the scenes, they're like, no, they were on location at that beach. Like they were really at that place. So it's funny
Mhm.
how things look a certain way to people now, at the point that people are just now assuming it was in that volume, and it wasn't. But I really enjoyed this finale for a lot of reasons. I felt like it had that epic feeling to it. It had a grand vibe to it. I thought the special effects were awesome. I liked the story. I thought the fight scenes were fantastic. I liked going back and forth. It felt like at the end of a Star Wars movie, a traditional Star Wars movie, where we show the lightsaber duel here, and then we go to the space battle here, and then the ground battle here. Like we're going from the Qui-Gon Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul with Eric and Jade and Kit, and then we're going to Alora and what she's doing with the witch, and and then Willow shows up, and Willow has his Luke Skywalker moment that I think a lot of people were probably hoping for in like The Force Awakens or something. It just Kasdan pushed all the right buttons here, and credit to all the writers and everyone else who directed, of course, but it's his show. He's the showrunner. I thought he did such a wonderful job of telling the story because it did feel like Willow to me, but with a modern special effects, and he also made it feel fresh, and he took chances without question. Obviously, having right out in the open lesbian relationship, they didn't skirt around it. They had these two characters, saying that they love each other and all that stuff. And he said, "I'm doing this, and I don't care what the pushback is." If you look at the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes of 28, which is like lower than the worst movie of all time, like Master of Disguise with Dana Carvey, I think there's a reason for that. But I'm glad that he took those chances because he could have just played it safe and did a soft sequel or whatever. He told us a new story, and I liked all these characters. I know from the funny supporting characters, comic relief, like a Borman, who's sort of that replacement for Mad Mardigan in a sense. He's that rogue who has a heart
He's
of
kind
gold.
of the Han Solo, yeah.
Now, was this series missing Val Kilmer? 100%, because you can't replace that guy, especially that character. But they still were able to pull it off and have his presence felt throughout it. And Val Kilmer had given his blessing to the story. But I thought Kit, her arc was wonderful. I love Alora. I think that girl has a great future as an actor.
Ellie,
Eric, the only one I didn't like a lot was actually Eric. I didn't really care too much for that, and I felt like his turn was a little rushed. But overall, seeing the old cast, Warwick Davis brought it too. He gave his all to this, and I thought he did a great job with balancing the humor, but also the serious elements of the story. And I feel like they did a good job of towing that line of making fun of itself, being self-aware of how silly it is, but also bringing that heart that Willow endeared people to in the 34 years ago. So overall, I just thought they rounded it out great. And this was, in my opinion, James, you and I briefly talked earlier. This was my favorite episode.
I think 7 was probably my favorite episode. This is close though. I think the only thing that I was sort of hung up on was like, there's a couple like weird things where I was like, I wish they just kind of flushed that out a little bit better. This
Like
thing
what?
or this thing. Well, for instance, John just said like, I felt like his Eric's switch was kind of quick and stuff. There were a couple times where I'm like, this feels a little formulaic at times. Even the final battle, it felt like it was. It felt like it quickly turned and then it was over, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not to say that doesn't happen in like The Rise of Skywalker too. It's like all of a
Or
sudden
the first
pulls out a
Willow.
second lightsaber, and then it's like you're done. But I don't know. Just at certain times, there were just certain little things that I was like, okay, I think there's something about like just the human brain and like putting the expectations on the season finale and this one's going to be great, this one's going to be a big one, and maybe having too much going into it. Like if I knew there was one more and then I watched that episode, I'd have been like, that was great, I can't wait to see the next one. And then somebody would be like, oh, there is no next one, that was the last one. I'd be like, oh shoot. I probably would have enjoyed it more. But knowing it was the season finale, I might have put a little bit too much. Like I can't. And not to mention, too, we also got the advanced copy, so we saw most of this ahead of time. So we've been waiting not a week, but like even longer to see this and kind of building up in our minds what it could be. So maybe there was a little bit of that, but I do think like as just the finale of this season of this show, I think it landed. Everything felt good. I was looking at, Reddit threads and other things this morning of people talking about final predictions before, or it was yesterday, but final predictions before things happen. And it was just interesting how I think there's been a turn, at least in like the Willow official Reddit, where people didn't like it. And it was very calm right at the very beginning. Nobody was really posting things. And as time has gone on, I've seen more and more and more people posting. It's like revived that subreddit. There's now fan art, there's now theories, there's like people saying what I really love about this character is this, lots of those posts. It really did come alive throughout this season. So I'm excited because I think people who like Willow have now felt a little bit more okay with it. Sort of like what we say about Solo. Like for a while, there was this period where you weren't allowed to like Solo. And then like
mhm.
as you find the right people, you're like, oh, I thought I was the only one. I was afraid to say I liked it.
We get
And
a
now
lot of
it's
those
like
comments on our videos. Yeah,
it's
like, "Oh, I did
starting to
I've
sort
been
of
looking
come
for
out.
this." Yeah. Yeah.
Lucasfilm, like I let John Kasdan keep making Star Wars. Let him keep making this stuff. Like he gets this stuff, and
Mhm.
I know his dad co-wrote Solo with him, but you can clearly tell when this guy writes a story, he fell right from that tree, and he he seems to do what I love, which is write characters first and those relationships, and then go outward,
Mhm.
and that always works for me. Like the plot of this, whether it's called a realm or whatever, that really didn't matter to me. It was about buying into these people, and I did.
Mhm.
Loved it.
Mhm. Yeah, there were man, this episode was my favorite, and I see people in the chat talking about Kenneth, and I agree. He's probably my favorite thing about
I
this
love his
series
name is
just because
Kenneth.
he's yeah, it's just so cool, and I read the article where they talked about how they made it, and I think it was, like, 4 different guys were making it come to life, and they had, like, animatronic type stuff, like, with the big controller like they do with Grogu and stuff. So that's really exciting. But with the season finale, I just felt like there were so many different elements of things that reminded me of my childhood and, like, brought back kind of those feelings of like, "Oh my gosh, this happened in that thing and this happened in that," and, like, it made me wonder if Kasdan was pulling from those types of elements. I'm sure not all of them, but some of them, like, the whole scene of Elora Danan and Kit kinda being in this world where they, like, were forgetting what's going on, like, that to me is just straight from Labyrinth, like with
Yeah.
Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie, where like she doesn't know what's going on. She's at the ball and everything's perfect. And then she realizes, like, wait, something's wrong. And then she's like right back into her room in the next scene and thinks that everything's fine and then realizes, no, wait a second, it's not. And everything comes crumbling down. It like reminded me of that. I loved the transformation with the armor and Kit. And I will 100% admit I was someone that hated Kit in the beginning. I hated the character so much.
Oh, really?
I
Hmm.
thought she was so annoying. I was like, "Oh god, she's just, like, so grating." I don't know, her personality just, like, bothered me. I felt like because she was just so mean to Elora Danan that I was like, "I don't like her." I have come full circle on her. She is my favorite character. I love everything about her. I think she's perfection. I loved the moment between her and Borman where well, you know what's coming. He's gonna give her the armor. He gave her the armor and he's like, "This is you. This is your story." I loved those lines between the
Yeah.
two of them.
I thought of you when they said that, actually.
It was just so like, "This is your time. This is your story. It's like it's yours to take." And I loved the transformation. It was so
I can't
cool. It
wait
was
for Kit season 2.
right. It was very like Sailor Moon, her transformation where like kind of like falls down her body and like falls into place.
Yeah.
It's also very Iron Man. But man, Kit is the best. It's so amazing. I love everything about her. And I can't wait to see what she does in volume 2 and volume 3 because that actress, I believe her name is
Ruby Cruz.
Ruby
Ruby
Cruz.
Cruz. Yeah. Uh, she's killing it.
And
And
she was a late replacement too. There was another actor in place, and something fell through there, and then she got the part
I
pretty
couldn't
late.
see anyone else playing that part. She plays it with not just kind of this, like, excitement, kind of overconfidence swagger that she has, but then, like, there's also this, like, really vulnerable, like, "I'm still learning my way," which is just such a hard thing, I think, for actors to get sometimes is, like, that vulnerable side. It's easy to play the bad guy or be snarky or be, you know, kind of like a Borman, I guess. It's, like, easy to kinda be the goofy, funny guy, but to, like, really have those moments where you're giving into, uh, being scared, I think she played that really, really well, and it was really nice to see the engagement with her mother, even though it was a fake mom, where she's like, "I accept you for who you are." Like, you really learned their deepest,
Oh,
darkest, what they wanted so bad.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that was like biblical. I had the temptation that they were all facing in that weird fantasy land where they're like,
right.
"Oh, if I just sign up for this, then I could have this fake piece like the Matrix," you know?
It's
And
funny, I thought of James. James said he thought about me with the armor part. I thought of James with
Mhm.
this part because James is the type of person that would be like, "Okay, you're given a choice. You could have your perfect life if you drink this stuff, but then you have to go back to war if you say no. Like, which one would you choose?" Like, I see you asking questions like that, James. So I was like, "Oh, James probably loves this like idea of like, will they choose what they want versus what's for the greater good, or like what does that look like?
The whole time that was happening for me, I was just thinking, I'm surprised they're entertaining this idea. Like it seemed, and I just had to go with, well, when you're in this magical world and you're in front of this thing, you know what I mean? Like when you're in that situation, I could understand that. That was one of the other things too. Is like I felt like there was a beat that I wish was a little bit more fleshed out. Elora's like fantasy of the whole like marriage thing, because she
Her
felt
dress
like
was
she was
stunning.
100% bought in all the way till that kiss, and then all of a sudden she was like, I don't even like you. And I was like, that was a quick turn.
Well, I
I
think 'cause she
wish
got the flash of the mouth or whatever it was, remember? It was like this, like, really they'd have, like, little moments where you'd be like, "Wait,
Yeah.
there's something
Well,
there." Yeah.
I was just wishing that was a little bit more like she was kind of fighting against it, but like, like this can't be real, you know, or
Her hair
something
was
like that. And
blonde
then
again.
like something was,
All the that
yeah,
was
I
the
noticed
thing I was
that
gonna
as well.
say.
That
Yeah,
was
All the
such a really cool detail that every time she kind of backpedaled or fell back into her insecurity, she'd get, like, a stripe of blonde or go back to blonde, and then she'd go red again, and then she'd go back to blonde. Like, you see it throughout the show that
Mhm.
it's like all of a sudden she'll be all red, and then she'll have, like, one stripe of blonde.
Well,
Mhm.
what was her first name before the reveal? Like Dove or something like
Dove.
that.
Dove.
So, and he was calling her that too. It's almost like that
That was
manipulation.
his name. What was her name? It was something, like, very German. Like,
Well,
her
I
name that
mean,
Oh,
oh.
she only mentions it once just to say like, well, everybody calls me Dove because my real name is this, and everybody's like, ew,
It was, like,
yeah, that's a bad
Gertrude or
name.
something. It was something
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah, I mean the all that manipulation of trying to put her mind frame back into where she
Brunhilde.
was before she realized she was Alora. And
Right.
it's it's her look, her blonde hair, it's which is a mask, calling her Dove. It's just sort of that mental manipulation to try to erase her realization of who she is. And then yeah, she has that sort of like awakening moment, and then Willow shows up and burns the whole thing down. And
I loved that. I loved that
yeah,
moment.
I
Maybe it's
like that they
'cause it's
still allowed Willow to be the hero alongside these new heroes. I think that
yeah,
was
yeah.
important.
I
yeah.
was gonna ask you, John, because I did, when the line was said, "This is your story." I thought, who is the main character in this? Like, who, you know, who am I supposed to be following? And I'm like, sometimes I think it's Laura, sometimes I think it's Kit. So I'm fine with that show following it, but the show's called Willow, and I was
Yeah,
like, Andor critic over here, like, you know,
yeah,
why is the show called Andor when
yeah.
he's not really the focus at times? And I'm like, I think Andor's story was more Andor than this was Willow's story.
It's
He's very much one of the people, and probably not even either of the two main characters, in
it's
my
called
opinion.
Willow because the first movie was called Willow.
I know the real reason.
That's
I'm
why it's
just
called
saying.
Willow. Yeah.
I'm just saying it's one of
Mhm.
those things where maybe they possibly could have got away with calling the show Alora or something, and everybody would
I
just know Willow's the movie, Alora's the TV show. But I don't
I
know.
I see Kit as the main protagonist. And not because Borman's like, I realize this isn't my story, it's your story. Because the first characters we meet are Kit
Or
and
her.
Jade.
Mhm.
And she goes through the biggest transformation in terms of a character arc. I know Alora discovers her powers, but Kit goes from this bitter, angsty teenage type who has this,
Denying
arranged
who she
marriage.
is.
She's supposed to be this royal entity, and that's not who she is. And also the bitterness towards why did you he always chose you. It was always you. It was always about you, and
Mhm.
her anger towards that, which any kid, this is again a very George Lucas thing. This is a lesson for kids to learn because kids get possessive, kids get jealous, kids get bitter, and like George Lucas said, that you have a choice to make. You either choose the light or the dark. And Kit goes through this whole thing where she lets go of all that and winds up being better for it, because then she finds her path because she lets go of all the things she's obsessed with about Alora and is able to finally focus on herself, and it comes to her at the end. So in my opinion, Kit is the main character. Yes, Alora is the chosen one in terms of her powers and stuff, and you have Willow there, but he's like a legacy supporting character,
Mhm.
though very impactful. But for me, you guys may disagree, it's Kit's story in my opinion.
So, Lacey, where are
I
you
think
at
it's
on
a
that?
combination. I think it's a combination of Alora and Kit because it's telling
That's
just like
where
the
I'm at.
original Willow, like Alora's the centerpiece, but then Willow and Val Kilmer's character are like the main two characters. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's because they
I
started
feel
with
like it's
hating
very
each
evident.
other.
It's evident in this final episode as they're going. They jump off the cliff together in the last episode, and they're
Mhm.
there in that world together. They're
Yep.
making the decisions. They're having the conversations. They're spinning around back to back. It's like it's very evident that when we get to this final episode, the two lead characters of this story are the people who have gotten the furthest, and everybody else follows.
Right. I I definitely think, like I just said earlier, like Kit came out on top for me, like her character arc, everything about what she was sacrificing and knowing that she was doing something for the greater good. And like she's, I think, the character that changed the most through this journey. And I think even though Laura has come into her powers and like what her role is, I think when the time came, she still froze. And without her friends there, like Graydon, who we'll get to in a second, she wouldn't have, and Willow, she wouldn't have succeeded. She would have failed. So I think that we're back into another story, which the three of us love so much, which is found family. Alora has found her family again. She found the people that she belongs with, and that's where the episode ends. Is Kit saying, "Hey, are you coming? You belong here up here with us." And it was just like such a perfectly done moment. But I think there were a lot of gruesome moments in this episode. I'm not gonna lie, like where the crone like morphs into herself and her eye like falls out and like
Mhm.
Graydon gets exploded. Like it was very crazy. I was very
Yeah,
surprised.
he got Thanos
He
real
did.
quick.
Yes, he
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
did. And then the worm
do you
itself
consider
looked
that like a
disgusting.
dusting sort of thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like he just evaporated.
That's what it sort of looked like to me. And then, like, as I was thinking about kind of how the ending goes, I was like, I don't know, was it more of like the stuff behind him, like reached up and
It
pulled him
looked like
in or
he got
something, sort of?
exploded.
Oh
Yeah, it
yeah, have
kinda
you ever
looked
seen
like
the
that,
movie
but
Ready or Not?
Yes.
no.
He
Yes.
got ready or nodded. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. But
Um,
I was excited to see him at the end. So really quick before we can go back and get into the whole series, I guess we can get into some of the other moments in the series. But the moment at the end where you see him wake up, we were kind of talking about this right before the show, is like he's waking up in the same exact position, which is a deliberate choice by the people that made the show, that Alora Dannon was waking up in her vision. And then he sees her and he's with this army. I think that he's now obviously alive in this other realm. Alora Dannon is not Alora Dannon. It's like her evil self, which again, I'm getting total anime like Sailor Moon vibes that like the love interest comes out and he's on the dark side. And then they're in another dimension. And then that person's on the dark side now and they're a love interest. Like that's very kind of anime for me where like it's like enemies to lovers type thing.
Hmm.
But then to see like the whole army that's going to be unleashed, like it's setting it up into such a place that it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But I think that's one of the coolest things that happened throughout the series is that Graydon found his powers. And you knew something was going to
Mhm.
happen to him. As soon as he admitted to Alora Dannon that he loved her, I was like, oh, there he goes. He's dead. Like as soon as he said that, he's like, you don't have to say anything. I love you so much. I was like, oh no, sweet, sweet boy.
Yeah.
I definitely loved there's a moment with Willow handing him the wand and saying, "You're on your way to becoming a great wizard." And I was like, this just
Sorcerer, yeah.
or sorcerer, yeah. It just reminds me so much of the movie. And I found I haven't rewatched Willow. I've watched it a couple times, probably like 3 times since, the series was announced or whatever.
The movie, you mean?
The movie, yeah.
Yeah.
And but I'm not like a big fan to the extent of like I understand the references and I know the lore very deeply. But as I'm bopping around here and there on Twitter or Reddit or YouTube video or something, I'm finding so many fans point out things that are very clear and deliberate from the writing staff. Like exactly what you were saying, Lacey. Like there's a reason he's laying very specifically in this spot because this is an allusion to this. But it also goes back as far as the movies the movie and the trailer, the books. Like it seems like they named characters specific things as for these reasons and these reasons. And I'm like, oh
Did you
my
see
gosh,
Kit's
man, it's
Ray
just
buns in her flashback?
no, I didn't.
Ray, Kit and Eric when they're playing, and she's calling him back to like the
Oh,
light,
right.
and she's saying,
Yeah,
"Come
that was
back,
a
come back."
cool
She
thing.
has Ray buns, the little Ray buns, and I was like,
Did you
"Oh
guys
my
catch
god,
the Palpatine reference?
which one?"
Oh, the lightning bolts out of your fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I was like, that should be a clue that he's the bad guy
yes.
because his desire is like, whoa, you have
Can you
power?
fly?
Can you
Yeah.
shoot can you shoot lightning bolts out of your fingers? And it's like that's what interests him about having power, is the
Yeah, the
Palpatine
Padme
side
and
of the
Anakin
power.
sitting in the field together,
Yeah.
talking about somebody should be in power. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it actually astonishes me sometimes when somebody has the ability like like Ryan Johnson. We all probably just watched Glass Onion, and it's like the details that
Of
go into
references, yes.
such a movie, like whether it's just like this background painting or which is supposed to be a reference to this
Or how he's
person's
dressed like Tom
ability to
Cruise. Yeah.
something. Yeah, all this stuff. And I'm like, man, it's just so many details. And John Kasdan is one of these people. I just get more and more convinced that this guy has it all together when it comes to like writing the story. He's like, the character is going to be named this because it was called this in 1982 and or whatever, like during this script and this one thing, blah, 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 blah.
Well, and
And
also the
I'm
people
like,
that
oh my gosh, man.
like the casting stuff, like Julian Glover had a role in this series, and he was able to achieve the Lucasfilm trifecta of being in Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and
Yeah.
Willow, which is
Mhm.
awesome. And someone else brought up before in the live chat about Kit's story being like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey story, which is right on. It's right on the money. And I like that. If you think back to the movie Willow, the disappearing pig trick, which that's Willow, like he didn't really have his powers, he didn't really know what he was doing, and he had this magic show for the village and stuff, and he wound up using that simple little trick to fool the Ultimate Queen into thinking he sent Allura to the Netherworlds or whatever, and really he just hid her behind something. And that simple trick is like, you don't need to be all powerful as long as you like believe in yourself. And a lot of these characters echoed that in this story the same way Willow defeated her in the original movie, where she wasn't really using powers, but at the same time he was able to defeat her by tricking her. And I like that, none of these characters, there's a lot of imperfections with all these characters. There wasn't this, all invincible, all-knowing, infallible character, and that adds a level of charm and likability. And they all sort of together are like this a key cohesive unit. Yeah.
Otherwise there's no risk, there's no kind of chance that things could go wrong, because if someone's
even Willow had his flaws still here and throughout this
very
this whole
Luke
series.
Skywalker this whole series. And I know he kept saying like, oh, I took on Mark Hamill from Last Jedi, and like I kind of channeled that, and I was like, I was getting mad Luke Skywalker vibes.
Yeah,
but he definitely got that, and I was okay with that because I was okay with the Last Jedi Luke Skywalker.
I was okay with it too. I'm just saying it was just very interesting that it was like very similar. I was like, oh, okay.
Willow he wasn't as grumpy though. He always believed in the magic,
and then he'd get knocked back, and then
he went back and forth, and I think that's the good thing. He didn't always believe, and he wasn't always grumpy. There were times when he would be like, "We're gonna keep going. That's what we do, right?" And then like in his tent or whatever, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't think we can do this anymore." Like, I'm a fraud,
Yeah, speaking of people in the show, James, I know we have a picture of it. Why don't we bring up the character that is played by our buddy Jonas, which was such a nice surprise. The Scourge.
Yeah.
Look at how big he is. And we know because we met him at Celebration. He's a big guy. And he is owning this. I was so happy when they announced this, and he was talking about it on Instagram, and I was like, I'm so happy for you. And he liked it. And I was like, hooray.
These characters very much reminded me of the Avengers Infinity War villains.
Oh, yes. The 3 guys that show up to like find all the stones. Because there's always 3.
No, I think there's 4 in Avengers actually.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, but I think one of them dies like fairly early.
Well, this one dies too. What's her
Yeah.
name? The Dag? Yep, the Dag dies. She gets blown up. A lot of blowing up in this show.
Sounds like you said the dog dies.
Oh, the Dag. Dag.
You know,
The
it's a
dag
sad
dies.
story when the dag dies.
It's like Brad Pitt in Snatch. Dags? Yeah, dag.
What else
Yeah,
are we
and-
looking at?
Yeah, sure. Throw up some more pictures.
Well, we
talk
got
about it.
brownies again. That was a direct callback from the movie with
Mhm.
the original actor that played the brownies in the first
Kevin
one.
Pollak. Yeah.
That was
lot
a
of
really
people-
nice
A
surprise.
lot of people were really mad about this because apparently his daughter is wearing some sort of like band shirt or something, and they were
I
like,
found that
"Oh my
people-
gosh, it's just so
I guess
unreal that they would make a mistake like that or just like not give into the lore of the world and just
I feel like this show was going for a more modern, hip vibe, and people were annoyed about that. People didn't like that it was taking a step away from the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and more into like modern references. But at the end of the day, this is like kind of made up world, I guess.
Modern dialogue. I saw people talking about, which I
Yeah.
didn't. I people saying the term "make out" and stuff like that. And whatever.
They said the B word.
Yeah.
They said
Oh,
the
well,
B word in the finale.
Look, Star Wars said ass in the Rise of Skywalker. So it's and they've used the words damn and hell in the original trilogy. Like, I think the only thing that maybe you could have a little bit of an argument with, you can have an argument with whatever you want. I'm just saying, like starting the modern music as you're finishing up the story, maybe push that until you get to the credits and not do a fade in. That's
Mhm.
a small thing for me.
See, I
but-
like that. I like that I like
figured
that
you
it was
did, but-
building to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
as a musical cue.
Can we bring up Kit's armor? Because we're talking about it, and they're also talking about it in the chat, which it looks like someone
One-
in the chat named Jez actually worked on the show and made some of the armor for Kit, which is kind of cool.
I want to hear about that. One
That's
more
awesome.
thing though about what we were just talking about,
Mhm.
the sort of modern reference. I forget what I was going to say. So let's go to the picture. You threw me
Look
off guard. I was
how
like, wanna know about
cool
that.
she looks. I can't wait to see cosplayers. I hope at Celebration we get some Willow cosplayers because I will be taking all the photos with them.
Now, does
Um,
Hasbro do Willow figures? Because that's
so
a question
here's
for
the
Hasbro.
sad thing is they haven't. They've done Star Wars and they're doing Indiana Jones, but they did not do Willow. So maybe it's
So
time I
who is
start
doing
nagging them
Willow?
about Willow. I don't think anybody's doing any Willow merch. I haven't
Like
seen
Hasbro has
anything.
the rights, but they're not doing it.
Oh, I don't know.
All right,
I have
so
no idea.
TRB is officially putting our hat in the ring. We're gonna create the action figures for Willow, and
Who wants to help create this armor for me? That's what I want to know. I want to wear this. I think it looks really cool.
Because we didn't know if the books confirmed or didn't confirm multiple seasons, so I wanted to make a "Make Willow 2 Happen" shirt.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got this wrong. Jez didn't make the armor, but he watched it and made it. And it's an incredible
yeah.
build.
Oh, that's
Very
awesome.
cool, Jez. Very awesome.
is very
Sorry I
cool.
misunderstood you, but that's still really awesome. And someone is saying in the chat that they do have Super 7 has Willow figures.
Look at
All right.
Eric with his lightsaber. I mean,
Oh, when he transformed into like the crone
That is
where
Darth
like
Maul's.
which I'm realizing, which I didn't realize in the beginning of the series, is every time someone gets infected, they looked like the crone. So they lost
Mhm.
that specific eye. They had those specific cuts, and I didn't realize it until Eric.
yeah, yep.
So like the
forget-
guy that gets his head chopped off by Jade looks
Yeah.
just like this, missing the same eye. So it's like they get infected with that specific.
Well, like it's almost like possession or something.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like Men in Black when the guy starts looking all weird. you know,
Or
It's-
well, you could say like the Fly in the sense that like there's a period of time where he's half this person and half the Fly.
or
So,
The
like,
Exorcist.
There's
is
a mix
perfect one.
between the two. Yeah. But you can start to tell that this thing that I'm looking at is half this person and half that person. Like almost like that Morphe Me Instagram page. You know, the one where they mix the two celebrity faces or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you guys have a favorite moment from the whole series? Because I know we talked about obviously the finale, but was there anything in the whole series that was your favorite?
We don't have the picture, but it's when they're in this
Oh my god, I
world.
love Kenneth. There he is, guys. I love everything about Kenneth, the
They're
Mudmander.
when they were training in this world with the lake water, and
Mhm.
the sky was reflected on the ground, and it was the purple and pinks and stuff. I was
The
like,
stars,
this
yeah.
takes me straight to like Final Fantasy X, you know?
Oh
Like I'm like,
yeah,
"Oh my
yeah.
gosh, like this just feels so much like these worlds that are only they only live in fantasy. They don't they're not real places that you could go and visit. Of course, in real life there are
It's
places
like a
that when you're
dream.
there you're like, "Holy crap, I can't believe
Yeah.
this is on Earth." But
Mhm.
sometimes when you put, certain things together, it just becomes a dream. Yeah, exactly.
Lacey, what about you?
Come back to me. Go ahead, John. You go first. Come back.
I always
I have too many
find
favorites.
I don't know that we always have patterns and stuff, but I feel like when we do these favorite things, you two usually go by a visual shot or like something visual, and mine's usually like a story thing.
Mhm.
And for me, it's Kit with the armor, sort of. Her story was the best part of the series for me. Again, her having her moment and finally being able to have center stage in a sense when she finally in the last two episodes lets go of her bitterness and her anger and disdain for uh, her parents caring for Alora so much, her coming to terms with that, and when she was as soon as she was able to let that go, she was able to come into her own. Her getting that armor and being uh, having everything she wants and being able to live her life the way she wants to live it personally and as a warrior, like everything about it. You see from episode 1, this girl who's about to go give vows to this guy she doesn't love, be a princess, all these things she doesn't want to do. Meanwhile, when she has her free time, she's over fighting, pretending she's going on adventures with her best friend. And then fast forward to the end. If you take the first episode and watch that and watch the 8th episode, I'm so happy for that character that Kit got to live the life and be who she always felt she was. And I think that's my favorite moment, seeing her finally get that armor and have that big moment, and of course bringing her brother back.
I also like, just as the show went on, you had that ongoing story between the multiple main characters, right? But you also had the single episode that focused on side character a lot more, and you learn that person, and they all kind of went through their own journeys. But
Yeah,
you can almost point to like, well, this episode was about Graydon, this episode was about Borman, right?
which is great for
And
a series to be able to do that.
I
Yeah.
love
exactly,
when they
because
do
when you
that.
get to the end, you see all of them standing there, and you'd be like, "We've all come so far."
In a
There's
movie,
not
you
like
can't
one of
do
them
that.
like, "Well, that person's the same person."
Right. Yeah.
I also love shows like this that have all these different kind of side moments for characters because it lets like us, like a group of friends, pick your favorite character. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like no one's ever going to fall on the exact same like order of characters they like or whatever because
Oh, after the
everybody, like
show,
you
when
were
we play
saying,
Willow, you can pick. I'll be Kit. You'll be
you're going to be
Alora.
kid.
Ja-
Yeah, okay.
James will be Borman. And there we go.
Absolutely, he's the best.
Um
He is 100% the best. Like,
he made me laugh so much throughout this series. Like I can't say it enough. This series is like a hug. Like I really enjoyed it. And every moment I had a smile on my face, even when it was like scary and stuff, because I get scared really easily, but scary and stuff and gory because I knew at the end it was going to end on a note that you were like, all right, let's go. Like every episode I ended with like, yes, like, all right.
I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, we're about to hit the
Yeah.
finale. Are they going to kill anybody? And my just gut was like, this isn't that type of show. Like, in a way, like, I know the Rise of Skywalker has like Kylo Ren dying or whatever, but to me, it's like, you can't kill Poe, you can't kill Finn, you can't kill Rey. Those are the three. That's it. Anybody else
Right. And if nobody
on the
dies, there's no
table?
risk. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but you can't kill these three because that's the story of Star Wars. These three have to make it out because they are the core, right? It's like Han, Luke, and Leia, right? You're not
It's
gonna
like
kill
Hunger
them by
Games,
the end
PETA,
of the third
Katniss.
movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, even though they're all up and down, like Peeta's a villain for a while, right? It's like,
Yep.
okay, but
Another
whatever.
thing, the lovable guy that goes bad. That's like
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a
But
sucker
I
for
knew
those.
I knew in my heart going into the final episode that it was going to be something where all the characters survived. And I was actually really surprised when they killed off Graydon. But then I was like, okay, they didn't really kill him off. He's still around. There's still going to be a character. He's obviously over here or whatever.
And that's why Laura
actually-
like looked
whatever.
back, like she didn't want to leave because she probably
Yeah.
felt that he wasn't.
And it felt wrong. It
Yeah,
didn't feel,
yeah.
there was no closure on that moment. They were all walking away. And I'm like, how are we sure he's dead? I was like, I guess that's it. And I was kind of unsettled by them just being like, man, still got his flute. We'll tell people he was great. And they're walking away. And I'm like, why are they not going back and like, closing the door
I think
on
because
that?
they saw him evaporate and they
Explode.
Just assumed,
So did I. I saw it happen, and I'm still like,
But it is a weird
there's
thing that
something
such
about
a
all the
lovable
magic
character.
in the world and the
but they
different
don't know that
elves
they're
and
in
stuff.
Willow.
Yeah, I know.
We know that they're in Willow.
No, Borman knows. He's like, this is your story.
Oh well, those the meta self-aware lines, and there was a lot of humor too. Like when Willow like has this big emotional moment with Allura, then he's like, "All right, I'm gonna go kill these guys now." It was like so hard. And then Borman's line when he goes,
Blokes. He
I'm-
says, "I'm gonna go kill these blokes."
he bleeds blokes, yeah. And then when Borman goes, "I'm gonna go out of this world the way I came in, naked and kicking ass," I'm like, that's amazing.
I loved that
Amazing.
speech, by the way. Of all, Jade has a great speech before she jumps off the edge and stuff. But out of
Mhm.
all of them, the one that I felt the most like earned was Borman's, because for some reason they're like standing there and they're like, "Hey, you want to get a sandwich or whatever? You know, I mean, this is it for
He's
us."
like, "Don't say anything more. I'm gonna cry." And he's like, "I'm gonna," and he's like, he just jumps.
Yeah, but
Oh,
like
yeah, Willow
as
and
Willow's
Borman's adventure
leaving,
home. Yeah.
as Willow's leaving, I believed that he was really standing there going like, pulling the Han Solo thing, like, you can try to say you're this all you want, but at the end of the day, you are this other thing and you will always do the right thing. That's Borman's character. He's very Han Solo in that regard. But that was the thing. I knew that going in, and I see him standing on the thing and he's the last one. And I'm like, what's going to be his reason to go over the edge? And I was like waiting for it. And the way he processes it within himself, or we could entertain the idea of going forward. We could jump off the cliff, right? And then he goes for it. And I don't know. I wish we would have seen. I don't know. I guess I did Willow fine, but I was
Okay.
like, I was trying to figure out what really made him come back. Why would, if he's so involved, why did he walk away in the first place? But I don't know.
To
I
see
don't
if
know.
she could do it on her own.
Yeah. So since we're talking about Borman so much, because we love him, what are our favorite Borman moments? Mine are one where he says, "Why don't we all just make out?" Like, let's skip there. Let's all make out. And two, after he gets the armor and he's sitting on the beach before they go to the Beyond the Shattered Sea. And Jade goes, or Kit, I think, goes, "Why don't you just put the armor on?" He goes like, "You can't just casually put this on. You can't just casually make this decision. Like, it has to be at the right moment." And it was like so smart and wittily written by John Kasdan that I was like, that is such a writer note. Like, that's John Kasdan speaking to us. You can't just casually put this armor on. You have to wait for the perfect moment. And they did, and they waited for Kit. And I think those are my two favorite Borman moments.
They do poke fun at tropes
Yes.
while using them, which is really funny.
And it's so funny. Yeah, it's so
I would like to go back in. I'd like to watch like a YouTube video of like a collage of all his like Willow, but just Borman. You know what I mean? Just
the
like all of
shower
his.
scene. The shower
Yeah.
scene where he's like, "Oh, I fought my way out," and it's like him in the shower.
I kind
And-
of like the dance scene where like he's on the truffle or whatever, and like he's got his eye on her, and he's like moving forward, like through the people, like moving out of the way of other people. That was pretty good.
Oh,
But no,
the-
by far I think he was just hilarious the whole way through.
Yeah,
he's
and
so good.
you know, James, it's funny you say you liked the second to last episode the best because the writer for the movie Willow co-wrote the second episode of the series and the seventh episode of the series, which Bob Dolman, which I think is really cool. He's been a producer that was kind of understated, and I'm not sure why, but the original writer of Willow was very heavily involved in this series, and that's why like sometimes, but I think when people I don't want to say lazily, but it feels that way. Just like say like, oh, this destroys the original. It's like everyone involved, Ron Howard, Bob Dolman, Lucasfilm are all Warwick Davis are all back doing this. So
I wonder what George thought of this.
I bet he loved it. If I had to guess, because it told like those fables, those morality tales, those lessons for kids, and I think that's really. I always any interview you ever hear George Lucas talk about, that was the most important thing to him. So I would like to think that he enjoyed it.
Yeah, the story I really loved, or like kind of like thread theme throughout the series that I really enjoyed that I would have loved growing up was it's okay to be scared. Like that, they consistently kind of set that up for Kit and for Laura and for a lot of the other characters, but specifically those two, that it's okay to be scared, but it's how you handle being scared and what you do to move forward. But like, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to have feelings. Because I don't know about you guys. Growing up, I was told to like, don't have any emotions, like suck it up, basically. So like to see characters in kind of roles that could impact kids or children and being said like, yes, you're scared. That's okay. That's normal. That's all right. Was just like really refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say I wrote it down because that point that I was gonna make a while ago.
Oh,
was the references to real life and the normal talk or whatever. Because it's in the original movie. Madmartigan says, "And I'm the king of Kashmir," which is not a place in that world. That's a real place. The king of Kashmir is a famous historical person in our real world. So it's like even in the original movie, which I mean, we don't want to go down that pike of like how the show is more like the movie than you remember or you think, or you're not giving it enough credit. All these like
it is an
things, the humor
absolute extension because I watched them back to back. It is literally like going right onto the next page of the story.
And so I was like, that's just another thing for when people say, well, they don't like that there was a real world mention in the TV show. I'm like, buddy, he says, yeah, and I'm the king of Kashmir in the original, in the movie. And I'm like, you get the joke and that's enough. You know, it's not supposed to be, well, this doesn't make sense because this is a real place in real life. We have to write in some lore thing here. It's a joke. So does the joke land? Yes. Then Willow was a good movie because the jokes landed, right?
Yeah.
The show was very funny.
I also had a weird thing, and I don't know if you guys had any of this at all, because again, advanced copies and stuff, we watch more of it. But did you have any theories at one point that didn't pan out? Because
I knew Elora Danan was Elora Danan from the first moment you see her on screen. I'm proud of that.
Well, he's saying, did you have a theory that did not pan out?
Did not.
I know, but I wanted to let you know that did pan out, and I was right.
Mine
called it culture is back.
Mine was, I had this weird theory that Borman was actually an older version of Graydon. Like somehow they were going to explain that was like him from the future.
That's kind of cool though.
And he was sort of helping him learn things and become who he was supposed to become, because he was more courageous and Graydon
kind of like
was
a Terminator thing where they come back in time to help them.
Oh, but it didn't pan out. So I mean, it still could technically, but he could be a wizard or a sorcerer by the third season, and they could explain that. But I don't know. I don't think it's going that direction at this point.
Man, I don't know if I had any theories. I went into this series because it wasn't Star Wars with like a really fresh take,
relaxed. I'll just enjoy it for what it is. Kind of.
It was a delight to go into every episode being like, I'm just gonna watch this. And we're gonna talk about it eventually, or I'm gonna react to it. But for now, I'm just gonna watch. I didn't really have any theories. I really, really loved this series, and I can't wait to watch it again.
I thought we were gonna get a sort of CG version of Madmartigan
Oh, yeah, you had said that.
materializing because they kept using his voice, and
Wait,
obviously,
you
you know,
thought they were gonna have a young
Here we go.
Obi-Wan slowly
go.
move into an older Alec Guinness
There it is.
Obi-Wan?
There we go. There it is. Yeah, I can always tell when you're gonna deliver a joke because you have a big smirk on your face. But
Yeah, and you're
I
not readable at all.
no, I'm like I could play poker with anybody. Yeah, not really. But no, yeah, I thought we were gonna see him, and it was gonna be like almost one of those things where, because I felt like Mad Mardigan is in some sort of odd like purgatory. You know,
I
he's able
agree.
to
He's
he's able to
trapped, yeah.
he's able to speak to Kit, and they didn't really finish that story off and let us know like what the deal is. But I thought it was gonna be one of those things where he finally sees that his kids and Alora are in a good place and he could let go. Sort of like that. I mean, it's a trope, and it's happened in stories where, you know, whether it's, I don't want to spoil movies right now, but where we would see him sort of materialize and then vanish permanently or something like that, and give closure to Val Kilmer's character. And they could easily have done that by making him an apparition, and that way
I know what movie you're talking about. No
there's
spoiler.
like 3 on the top of my
I
head.
know which one you're talking about, though.
I mean, they
put it in the private
like
chat.
they could have Luke and Boba Fett sort of style done something in that fantasy world where, you know, he's there or something.
That's one of
could've.
them. That's one of them. But there's another big one too. But, you know, I thought that would have been cool, and it would have given like a nice bookend to Mad Mardigan's story. And maybe they explore that.
It's not
you know, in
done
the
yet.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a part of the reason why Val Kilmer couldn't come back is because he was still recovering from throat cancer and COVID. With his health, he couldn't obviously risk that. So maybe they left it open on purpose, because if they hopefully can do a season 2, maybe we get that thread closed out and he can appear in some way. I think that'd be awesome, because he's
That
healthy
would be
again.
cool.
He doesn't have his voice anymore, but
did Top Gun.
he right, but he, you know, he's healthy enough to perform and act, and he still does a lot of creative things. So I think that'd be awesome to get Val back in for a cameo or something like that. But I saw people in the chat bringing up Willow's wife, and it's funny, I was Googling her too, and I was wondering that too, because the end of Willow is so sweet, because he goes on this whole adventure and he fools this queen with his lack of magic, and then when he gets back, he sees Kaya and he just goes, Kaya. They have this big family group hug. And I want to know, did I miss something? Did they explain
He
what happened to
explains I'm blanking right now. He
his wife and
explains that
son?
something happened, and then something happened to the son, and then the wife never forgave him, or like something of the wife, the son never forgave him, and all he has is Mims.
Yeah, they either are just gonna ignore that or explain that in a future story or something, because it is like the end of Willow. It's so sweet and heartwarming, like that family hug when they're all together when he gets home. You know, I wish his whole family was still in this. I don't know what the reasons were behind it, but that's okay. You know, it's part of it. But we're up on an hour, so do you guys want to do some light, quick, brief? You know, if they continue on, what may happen?
Sure. I think Graydon is obviously getting kind of brainwashed by this like seductive, dark Alora. And he's going to kind of be stuck on that side of the fight, because he's just not going to understand that it's not really her. I think the army is obviously going to get out and a big battle will ensue. The question is if that battle will be in volume 2 or volume 3. Alora is probably going to have kind of guilt that Graydon died and still be battling with that, as well as figuring out who she is. Because when we meet her, her whole personality is like basically being the girl that's like puppy love and like infatuated with Eric. So now she has to kind of figure out what that means. Hopefully we're going to see her continue to be besties with Jade and Kit.
That was another point of closure for me, like what the whole Graydon thing happened, because I was like, something doesn't feel right. Like I feel like he didn't really die, because they had this whole lead up to the whole season of him falling in love with Alora, and then he never like confesses that or says goodbye, really, or anything to her. And I'm like, what would have been the point to all that? So to me, there's right now they feel like the two that they're eventually going to be together.
It's their love story. Yeah.
Yeah, but you
Season
have
2 is
to-
going to be rescuing him. She's going to get like visions of him or something.
he's in the Upside Down right now.
Sort of,
Yeah.
yeah. And she's going to get these visions to like, I know where he is, and we have to go get him. They're all going to be like, all right, let's go.
Yeah,
there we go,
he's
season
alive.
2.
No, we saw
Yeah.
him disappear. No, I know it. That kind of thing.
And his powers will play a role in that too, because now they're
I don't
setting
know that he's
up.
getting brainwashed though. I feel like he's
I don't know either.
trapped, but I feel like he's going to be like just stuck in this world and like
But you have to
hiding or on the
remember,
go, kind of like
Eric was
Ant-Man
pretty-
is the wife was
sure.
down there like fighting on her own for a long time, and then they finally rescue her. She's like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
I'm just saying, like, it just with what happened to Eric, they kind of set up what's going to happen to Graydon. Is like Eric was stuck somewhere and he wasn't bad. Nothing happened to him, but he said he was there
Yes.
for like how long? It was like 36 days or something crazy, like
Mhm.
for a while. And then eventually he just gave in because he had no will left. So the question is, how strong willed is Graydon?
I
Because
think those are
now that
two
I've
different
said it, I'm
places,
getting
though.
I know, but now I'm totally getting PETA vibes from him where he's like this sweet, innocent, like means well, but like if you get beat up enough or you get treated a certain way enough, you're going to turn into kind of like you're going to have trauma. You're going to
I
have some
hear
type
what you're
of
saying, but the more you're saying it, I'm more convinced that they're not going to go down the route that they just did with Eric, where you have someone who should be a good guy, but he's sort of brainwashed. They don't know how to approach him because he's good, but he's possessed. I think they're going to go somewhere different with that, because I don't think the world that he's in is a mind altering state. He's there and he doesn't know where he is,
Like
but
Will Byers.
that's what I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there, but he's not like in the zone or becoming evil or something. I think that was this other world where they had the water and there was nothing to do. So you're bored and you'd be willing to do anything. Just get me out of this boredom. You'll succumb to that, whatever. But this is like a war zone. There's like all an army there and they're fighting.
Yeah,
It looks like
the-
Terminator or whatever.
and they're
I'm
bringing
like,
it
oh
up
my
in the
gosh.
chat. The two-headed monster from the movie is also
Right,
in the,
yeah, I
the
saw
scene.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah, I think
He's so good.
he has a longer role to play. And he'll become greater and greater, and then the two of them will probably have a kid by the end of the third season or something, and then
I'd love that, James.
they tease how powerful Sorcerer that thing's gonna be.
Give
whatever.
me a happy ending.
Well, let's hope that there is more Willow, because I certainly left that open for us. So hopefully people watch it and people enjoy it. And people who stopped watching it, if this episode didn't convince you, I strongly advise you to keep going, because it kept getting better and better for me. But any final thoughts before take us out of here?
Oh, the series is so good. I don't know if I have any more final thoughts, but I'm going to be yelling about this series for a long time.
Nice.
Yeah,
All
I
caps.
hope it grows, and I know
All caps.
I know this is one of those things. I said it a while back, but like I was really hoping this show would be like just a blowout hit, because it would bode well for the Solo series with Kasdan and multiple members, at least 3 members of this crew coming back to do that show as well. But I don't know. It still feels like it's a little bit of a toss up. Like I feel like I still see people criticizing it, and in my real life, talking to friends, I still find that I have more friends that are like, I don't know about that show, than I
It comes
do
down
that
to-
are loving it. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping that, maybe they see more of it and then they get it and then, okay, all right. Not that they're not getting it, but you know what I mean? They like become more okay with it, that it take it for what it is, kind of thing.
Disney Plus has been losing money, so it's going to be a tall order. It just comes down to, do people watch it? And if people watch it, then we'll get more, and hopefully that's the case. And I think with the way Disney Plus productions are, I mean, yes, this was on location and stuff, but I'm sure the budget wasn't too bad. So hopefully things work out, because I don't want to say goodbye to these characters just yet. And we got 2 more books on that shelf, right, James? So,
Absolutely.
all right. So, just so everybody knows, if you showed up late, don't worry, this is going to be on the channel, but we're also going to pop this on the podcast feed. So it's going to be on the audio feeds as well. And so everybody knows, we are going back to a galaxy far, far away tomorrow night, going live again at 8:30 East, TRB Live, talking all the latest Star Wars news. So hopefully you're not sick of us, because we're just, when we do more content, the other content is still there. We're still doing it. And a big part of that is thanks to your support. Whether you are an avid listener, a new listener, you watch our channel, or you're a patron of TRB, it helps us grow, and it allows us to do what we do, and it allows our families to have the patience to allow us to do what we do. So I want to say a big thank you to our patrons, because the additional stuff we've been branching out and doing, we couldn't have done any of this without having that backing. So a big thank you to anyone who supports us, or has supported us, or is thinking about supporting us on patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. The tiers start at $5 a month. More support we get, the more we can do. And the bigger we can grow this thing, the more time we can put into it. So thank you for all that. And I want to give a big shout out to our top supporters, our generals and spice runners. Our generals: Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Ramori, Matt Heath, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Paul Sullivan, Aaron Ellington, and Diana. Some of you I saw in the chat, and Spice Runners saw a couple of you in the chat: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Ryan Warrer, Dave Hornack, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and Michael Fry. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. However you support TRB, thank you. We hope you're having fun with us. It's going to be an awesome year. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to the show on your preferred audio platform, or, of course, the channel. We're growing the subscriber list. So youtube.com/@theresistance broadcast. If you're an audio listener, go over there and subscribe. And that is basically all of those plugs. So you can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. We just put out a podcast on Ben Affleck's The Town. If you want to check that out, just look up Just Like the Movies on your favorite pod app. James, how about you, pal?
You can find me both on Instagram and Twitter at Myra Trunks.
And Hive Social, right?
Yeah, Hive Social.
No, you're James Baney on Hive, aren't you?
I actually am James Baney on.
We got to bring back Hive. I don't know if it's still a thing, but anyway. Lacey, first of all, nice hat.
Thank you.
Love
Coming
it.
soon to our store.
Excellente.
Yes.
I like it. And where can people...
Or in the mail.
Chat you up about Willow in all caps.
Yeah.
People can talk to me about Willow and geek out about Kit with me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin, and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gillerin. And I also want to remind you that you can head over to Gentle Giant at gentlegiantltd.com/Star Wars. I know this isn't Star Wars related, but you can get 20% off in stock items. All caps, resist 20. And we have a coffee, which supports small business, including veterans, and our podcast. So you can head over to weirdbrothers.com, Resistance Brew, and have a wonderful evening.
I don't know
Absolutely.
if you could see this, but we are only 3 reviews away on Spotify. There it is. From 400. We are killing it on Spotify. Thanks to everybody. So if you haven't rated us on Spotify yet and you have it, just look us up, give us 5 stars, and get us over 400 before tomorrow night, please. All right. So we're going to get out of here. Thank you to everybody who hung with us all season watching our Willow reviews. If you're just getting to the series, we did a review of every single episode exclusively on our channel. So check that out. And thanks for coming along the ride with us. And we'll see you guys tomorrow night right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.